What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video, and I hope everyone had an amazing day. If you are new, welcome to my channel. My name is Jai, and we're back with Mr. Nightmare. Mr. Nightmare is on a roll, I should say. And how to his success. This is 3 disturbing true parent horror stories. When I read this, I was like, I'm very curious. Like, what's to happen? Is the parent? I don't want to assume the parent's psychotic. Are they crazy? Like, what's in store for this video? So I'm very curious. So sit back, relax, and let's watch.
I'm a single mother of 2. My ex-husband and I take turns watching the kids month to month. My son Luke is 15 and my daughter Melissa is 10. This happened just a few months ago. I did some late-night grocery shopping after work.
Co-parenting.
Luke had texted me earlier that he was going out with his friends.
Okay.
It was a Friday night. I wasn't thrilled with him leaving Melissa alone, but 10 is the age a lot of parents are more comfortable leaving their kids alone, and he knows I can't expect him to babysit her anymore.
All my parents says, don't
back
open
to
the
the
door
house around 9 o'clock at night. I had to make 3 or 4 trips from the car to the house because of the amount of groceries I bought. I always overdo it with the groceries on the months I get
where
to
your
watch
10-year-old?
the kids.
She would have helped.
Then on the months alone, I'm the complete opposite. When I finally finished putting all the groceries in the fridge and pantry, I went upstairs to greet Melissa. I heard the shower running in the bathroom, so I went back downstairs to lay down in the living room and put on my show on Netflix. I was halfway through an episode, and I still hadn't heard Melissa leave the bathroom upstairs. Long hot showers aren't free, and I never condone my kids wasting water. I went up there to knock on the door and tell her to get out of the shower soon. I went back downstairs to resume my show. Only for about 5 minutes, though. Melissa was still in the shower, so I went back up there again and knocked louder. This time I waited for her to acknowledge me, but when she didn't, I continued to knock louder and yell her name angrily. It took me a little bit to notice through the bottom crack of the door that the light was off in the bathroom. I tried the doorknob, but the door was locked.
Oh, wow.
The locks on my doors inside the house are easily unlocked with a fingernail, though, so I had to force my way in, now growing concerned. As the door opened, I yelled into the room at my daughter, at that moment feeling more furious than anything. I flicked the light switch up and went over to the tub. I yanked the curtain half open, honestly not knowing what to expect. But not in my worst nightmare would I have expected to find some 50-something-year-old withered-looking woman laying flat in the bathtub with the shower spraying water onto her.
What the fuck?
I screamed so loud and long until I lost the ability to scream for a few seconds. I had my back pressed up to the mirror. Everything on the counter had fallen to the ground. I felt an unexplainable sense of shock and horror. The woman stood up in the tub looking at me, her hair and clothes obviously drenched. I slammed the bathroom door shut and screamed Melissa's name. I checked her room first thing, and I found her hiding under the covers. I grabbed her and tugged her out of the room. As we passed the bathroom door towards the stairs, that woman was standing in the doorway of the bathroom. Everything about her looked like a zombie. Her eyes, her movement. I made sure to grab my cell phone before locking the 2 of us in the spare room in the basement. I called the police. As I waited for the police to come, Melissa told me she thought it was me who came into the house. And when she saw some random, scary-looking woman walking up the stairs, she ran to her room to hide. Luke left the front door unlocked when he left. The police showed up in a timely manner.
Come on, Luke.
I talked to the police and told them exactly what Melissa told me. I described the woman's appearance, noting she was also soaked, and because of that I couldn't give a good description of her hair besides long and graying. This was all after making sure the woman was no longer in the house.
You would get
not
shot,
under a bed,
especially
not in the closet, not
my
behind
kids.
the shower curtain. She simply left the house as easily as she entered. It's likely she was drugged out of her mind.
Yes.
I've never seen someone who looked like they were literally lacking consciousness yet still walking. I don't even know if I would have been able to press any charges on her if she was found, which she wasn't. And don't you worry, I properly scolded and reprimanded Luke. Always remember to lock your doors.
Please. But that's scary. Even if you do lock it, it's like some random people, some random crazy people just roaming around the neighborhood.
This was over 15 years ago. We once went to this family resort in New York State. We took our 2 kids who were 4 and 6 at the time. This focuses on our 6-year-old Michael Jr. We were on vacation around Easter time, so the resort had a bunch of fun little festivities set up for the kids, like Easter egg hunts, Easter decorations during bingo, and someone walking around in a big Easter bunny costume. While we were in the dining hall one evening, the Easter bunny was walking around giving kids high fives. When he came over to our table, our 4-year-old Peter hid under the table crying, but Michael Jr. gave him the high five and wasn't afraid at all. The guy in the bunny suit walked away quickly, probably to get our son to stop crying. The next day there was an Easter egg hunt, which was in one of the fields by the kids' center of the resort. I watched the kids scrambling to collect eggs while my husband Mike was elsewhere. I'm not really sure what he was doing. The Easter bunny guy was walking around the field interacting with the kids. I noticed he knew to avoid Peter. Peter came running to me when the Easter bunny got near to him. He would do the same thing with Santa around the holidays. The guy in the bunny suit was interacting with Michael a lot. I found it kind of cute. I just didn't want Peter around him so that he wouldn't start crying again. So I brought him to the other side of the play area for a little while. When it looked like the Easter bunny was gone, I walked him back to where Michael Jr. was last, but I couldn't see him. I started calling his name. Then another parent came up to me and asked if I was looking for a boy wearing a red sweater. I said yes, and she told me the guy in the Easter bunny costume walked him out of the field area in the direction of the parking lots. She told me this in a slightly concerned-sounding tone.
Lord have mercy.
I picked up Peter and ran in the direction that the woman pointed. I ran faster than I ever could, while holding my son on top of it. Motherly instincts clearly kicking in, giving me an adrenaline boost. I saw the man in the Easter bunny costume holding my child's hand, approaching the black car.
No.
I screamed at the top of my lungs at him to get away from my son. Then I screamed Michael's name.
You gotta tell me.
They both turned to look at us, and the man let go of my son's hand. Michael ran over to me, not realizing at all the danger he was just in. The man in the costume said to me that he was trying to find his mom since he looked lost, but that was total BS. He was about to get in his car with my 6-year-old son. I tried to yank the mask off of him, but he shoved me and yelled at me to piss off. Then he got in his car and drove away. I tried to remember his plate number, but he was gone too quickly.
Get out of here.
I called my husband on my old archaic cell phone, and I brought my kids to the front desk of the resort to meet him there. They said the man in the Easter bunny costume didn't work there. I was livid, yelling at the front desk workers the whole time, who were apparently aware of the man, yet didn't stop him or question him. We threatened to sue the entire place. They ended up refunding us for our entire stay, which we gladly
so they
accepted.
were aware, so they just
But I
let
was
a
mere
random
seconds
person
away
in a
from
bunny
losing my kid
costume
forever.
come and work? Like, what the... Like, who are you?
We adopted our son Charlie at the age of 2. He's aware that he was adopted. We were honest with him about that ever since he started to learn to speak. He's now 7 years old. We don't have any children of our own because my wife can't have kids.
It's a nice room.
Somewhat recently, my wife and I started noticing very strange behavior with Charlie. And what motivated me to actually sit down and write this was something my wife and I still can't explain. There's an upstairs toy room for Charlie since there's 2 extra bedrooms in our house. He has a big toy closet in there, and the whole room has a bunch of toys like a Lego table, action figures, and such. For the duration of about a month, at different times we'd hear Charlie talking to himself. Not like role-playing talking in his play. We'd overhear him speaking as if he were talking to another person in the room. The first time this happened, my wife wasn't home, but as I passed his playroom, I overheard him talking as if he had a friend in there. And I swear to God, I actually walked in just to make sure he didn't actually have a friend in there. When I walked in, I saw him sitting at his Lego table with a couple of his WWE action figures on top of it. But he wasn't currently playing with any of them. He was just sitting there, blankly staring at me. I asked, "Who are you talking to?" He shrugged his shoulders. As weird as it was, I had to assume he was just playing. The next time something strange happened, it was a lot worse. This time my wife was at least home to witness it with me.
Okay.
We were in the kitchen, Charlie was in the backyard playing. We heard him laughing and talking suddenly, so my wife went to look out the window to see what he was doing. Then she called me over to look as well. What we saw was Charlie talking to thin air, as if he were talking to a person. It resembled him trying to show someone who wasn't there how to use the plastic sword in his hand. I expressed to my wife my concern. She said he may just have an imaginary friend. I told her I didn't know how I felt about that. She seemed to feel it was completely normal.
I mean, I think
Fast forward to like the 3rd or 4th instance. It was 9 o'clock on a school night, approaching Charlie's bedtime. He was in his playroom still. I was trying to be lenient with the bedtime and let him play for a few more minutes. I heard Charlie laughing and talking to his imaginary friend again. I curiously had to take a peek into the room. As I opened Charlie's door, I heard his closet door shut. I looked at Charlie, standing up in the dead center of the room, with his toys scattered around him. I asked him who was in the closet, and something on the inside of it fell. It sounded like a big plastic toy. I asked one more time who was in the closet in a yell. He said George. I swung the door open, expecting one of his little friends in there. Maybe my wife let him have a play date or sleepover without telling me. But the closet was empty besides his toys. I picked Charlie up against his will and brought him to his room. I told him he was going to bed. Then I told my wife about the closet door closing on its own, and then the toy inside falling on its own. She thought I was messing with her at first, but then she saw I was serious. That night, I woke up to sounds from down the hall in Charlie's playroom. We sleep with the door open. I woke my wife and told her to follow me quietly. We tiptoed to the toy room.
Teamwork.
Charlie wasn't in there.
I ain't going there by myself.
A distinct, loud clicking sound was coming from inside the toy closet. I opened it, showing bravery for my wife. And as I did, the clicking stopped. We dug for any kind of electric toys that may have made that clicking sound. Nothing, though. I think that was the night I became a believer in the paranormal.
Oh.
The next morning, I woke to my wife's scream. She was holding our wedding photo. It was cracked right down the middle, not just the picture in the glass, but the frame too. It was cracked perfectly down the middle, separating the two of us. We took Charlie and stayed with my mom for a week. Then, after a week, my wife and I returned to the house. We listed the house for sale, and after a few days of normalcy, we brought Charlie back to the house. But we moved out a month later.
Damn. I mean, I better tell the person who's gonna buy it that no ghost is gonna run in me at my house. Get some sage, just some free something. That's scary. Oh my gosh, that's very, 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 very scary to witness. You know, when people, you got the old ladies coming in, do what they want. You got old perverted bunnies, all that. And I was like, what does this have to do with parents? It should have been just called True Disturbing Scary Stories, but it involved parents. That's what I get. Okay, how about that? Yeah, but yeah, no bueno, no bueno. So tell me guys what you think about this video. What are your opinions, your thoughts? Have the most awesome positive day, and see you next time, you guys. Stay blessed, stay happy, and share life. Do what you want and do it positive.